Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description. Alright, so this one's going to answer another Patreon question, also from Kira. Well, she gave me a good number of questions, so I figured I'd answer them. If you're on my Patreon and you feel like asking me a question, please know that I make those videos. And then you guys get them the second I make them, and then they come out for everyone else later. Channel members included, whether you're on Patreon or the channel membership. There's like different perks and whatnot for either. I wonder if any of you are on both, so please let me know. But so, do you have any videos on Baneful Magick? I do actually, if you search inside my channel, but those are kind of old, and as knowledge evolves and stuff, why not make some more? The ethics behind it and how to decide if you should direct it towards a certain person who hurt you or not. So, one of those things is, I rarely do baneful magic stuff nowadays. And I think, arguably, and take my stuff with a grain of salt, but baneful magic should only be used in a more defensive, boundary clarifying context rather than an offensive context. If somebody wrongs you, then you don't want to throw the book at them, um, you know, in for lack of a better term, but you sure as hell can shut and lock the door. So, as far as baneful magic goes, my go-to, because it was like the first spell that I ever did, and I did several of them back in college, which continues to get farther and farther distant from me as I grow older and getting up there in years, and my knees hurt. But binding spells. So if somebody is doing something negative to you all the time, or they are just negative in a certain way that influences you, then there is cord cutting that you can do, which I would consider to be baneful, because you are drawing a boundary, because they no longer have an attachment to you and they no longer have an influence on you. But cord cutting, which uses a physical cord that you tie knots into with intention, I actually do have a class on protection magic. I have two of them on Udemy. You can check that in the link tree down below. That does go into a bunch of baneful stuff, by the way. And if you're part of the Patreon, then actually I do believe you get those classes. When you sign up to at least a tier that's above the $1 thing. I don't entirely remember all the details, but so the baneful magic with bindings says, I am tying you to this position. I am putting you in a box, for lack of a better term. I am sequestering you into this space where this is what your influence is allowed to do. You can talk to me. You can do this, you can do that, but you can't do this and you can't do that. So I think I talked about this in my experiences with Magic video, either part 1 or part 2. But I did a binding spell when I was back in college. I'll go with this first example. Girl I was dating in senior year had her whole floor on her side of the building. They were extremely loud. They would have music on super late. There was constant arguments and lots of loud noises and stuff. Not having to do with her, but it was just drama everywhere. So I did a binding on it where I said that anybody that's involved with all these loud noises and these arguments and all this music and all these other things that make it nearly impossible to exist in that space, stop. I bind you. And I said those kinds of things as I tied 13 knots in a cord, and then I buried it. And she said it went away. So there you go. It worked. One of the things when you do a binding with a cord is don't keep it with you. Don't keep it on you. Don't carry it around you because it bound up a bunch of negativity. It's almost like you have a chemical, let's go with radioactive waste, okay? You have radioactive waste in a lead barrel. Well, guess what? You just contained all the negativity. And then you're going to stick it in your backpack and you're going to carry it around with you. Is that a good thing? No. What do they do with radioactive waste once they stick it in lead barrels? They bury it super deep in the ground, right? Because you don't want to carry that negativity with you, because it's kind of like a magnet and it contains it. And it's just, here's another analogy. There's a spill on the floor. It's nasty. It's gross. You clean it up with a bunch of paper towels. And then, do you stick it in your pocket? No, you throw it away, right? If you keep that cord, then you are literally carrying a nasty clump of paper towel schmutz that you just cleaned stuff up off the floor, and you put it in your pocket. Gross, nasty, don't do it. Because when I did that binding, when I did my first binding ever, which was to stop back and forth between me and someone else, because there was constant arguments and different things like that, I kept it on me, and because I thought it would help when I was in situations with her, because I had classes with her. And guess what? I got viral laryngitis, and around my 21st birthday. And when I was talking to somebody that at the time knew more about magic than I did, they were like, "You got to get rid of the cord." The second I did, I wasn't sick anymore, so I was carrying that negativity around. So with the ethics about baneful magic, it goes with your intent, right? If you want to bind them, you want to push them away from you, you want to have distance from that person. Why do you want to have distance from that person? If you want to make them feel bad, if you want to make them feel crappy, if you want to hurt them emotionally or physically or something, I don't like those ethics. Other people might speak differently to that, but I like to walk a moral high ground, I guess you could say. And if you want to do it because you want to stop the negativity from happening, because arguably you are feeding into that negativity by throwing negativity at it, and you are also feeding into that negativity by letting it happen, by being present to that kind of thing. Like when I would be in class with that person, and maybe my anger or whatever, my frustrations and stuff, I would sling mud, or that other person would sling mud. Regardless of who happened first, there's a negative dynamic in there, and you got to be the first, the person to take the first step and stop it, right? Because they could sling mud at you all day, but if you turn yourself into Teflon, because you put up shields, wards, meditations, and other things like that, and you're cycling your hoocha, and you're eliminating it constantly, then guess what? They can't freaking touch you. None of this stuff affects you, right? But if you're slinging mud, you are no better than the other person that you were trying to push away. If you have negative intentions toward that person, you are no better than the other person that you want to do this baneful magic for. Because why would we want to do baneful magic towards nice people? So obviously you want to do baneful magic towards somebody who's affecting you negatively. If you wish ill on them, that's fighting fire with fire, and then you have more fire. We don't want more fire, right? So basically your intention should be, I want to stop behavior or situation X because I don't want this negativity in my life. I don't want to have this negativity affect me or them. I just want us to coexist in peace, basically, right? Now, sidestepping into something that I've talked about in other videos, this in my video on like sin and forgiveness, I believe, which was another Patreon question from Kira, is the concept of hoocha. In the Andean shamanism stuff, hoocha is something that only humans generate, and it's emotional and energetic baggage that can develop as emotional difficulties, physical difficulties, things like that. And the less that we deal with it, the more it grows on us. You're holding a grudge. It's just going to get bigger and bigger over time, and it's going to affect you more and more. You're holding a fear, same thing. You're holding anger towards someone, same thing. The goal of, sorry about the frog in my throat, by the way, but the goal of any Paco or someone that practices Andean shamanism, one of the biggest things is elimination of hoocha, where we are constantly learning how to cycle it and eliminate it so we don't hold onto it. So even learning how to cycle your hoocha and eliminate it through various practices, which my lady and I do teach, by the way. Inquire about that, and I might make some Patreon videos on that kind of thing. Those kinds of things would probably be exclusive videos, just for Patreon and channel members, by the way. But the more that we do that, the less affected we get. There we go, it's loosening up. Then the less affected we get by other people and their negativity. So the ultimate goal is to walk through life where somebody treats you negatively. They're slinging arrows at you, their words, their feelings, their actions, all this stuff. It hits you and it goes away. It doesn't stick on you. So then, somebody says something nasty about you, you know who you are. You don't have to take that in. Slides right off of you. Somebody makes you, you're in a stressful situation, whether it's driving through traffic or, you get in a fight with your significant other, or, you have some family trauma or whatever in your friend circle and any of that stuff. You deal with it in a conscious way where you don't get emotionally affected. And then in that situation, you're grounding and cycling your hoocha and you're letting it out. And then at the end of it, take a big breather, cleanse yourself, and you walk away without baggage, without nothing. So the biggest thing about Baneful Magick is in its, to summarize, I guess, is in its intent. What are you doing it for? The ethics behind it would be that you would want to end the negativity between you and someone else, and you wouldn't want to have that person hurt. And then you can do this kind of thing for anything with like small things, from like when I'm driving around, I don't want to have any aggressive drivers near me, to every time I interact with this family member, it sucks and I don't want to have that affect me. So then, you make your spell work with intention. You can bind their negativity. Like maybe you have a family member that always brings up some family drama, or maybe they always talk about politics or some other crap, and then they might still talk about politics or whatever, but also because you did the binding of the energetics, then it rolls right off of you, because magic is more than just I said a spell and everything's good now. You got to walk the walk, you got to talk the talk, and you got to prove to the spirits like, hey, this is my intention. I don't want to have this affect me. So then when this thing happens to me, I'm going to do my best to be less reactive. And then the energetics that you set up, or the spirits that you work with, depending on the model that you are working with, whether it's psychological, spiritual, energetic, or whatever, then that it's the like attracts like response in kind, and then that energy that they're sending at you through their words and their actions and how you feel, it's not as affected. You're not as dragged down. You're not as reactive. So hopefully that made sense. Let me know down in the comments. Always, I'm always open to video suggestions and questions and whatnot. That's why I made this video in particular. And if you want to learn more from me, check out all of my opportunities in the link tree down below. See you next time. Good hunting.